Music is the answer. Sweet music is the way. Gospel, jazz, R&B touches you every day. Talk about how it moves you differently day to day. It's the R&B Bistro, where the music have its way.
Hello and welcome to the R&B Bistro Up Close and Personal. I'm your host, Venus. I'm here to take you through this musical dance we call life. And to do that, you know I bring on wonderful, prominent people in the community to help us make it through. Today, you know, whenever I don't want to get it wrong, I got to go to the notes. Today, my guest is the perfect person to have here for MLK Day. She's a corporate vice president, award-winning marketeer, acclaimed author, empowerment speaker, community advocate, extraordinary, phenomenal woman. She's been featured at Essence, Forbes, Black Enterprise, The Huffington Post, The Network Journey, and many, many, many other media outlets. I am so excited to have Dorinda Walker here at the R&B Bistro, up close and personal. How are you?
I am good, and thank you for having me.
Oh my goodness. In this cold, I'm thankful that you are here.
It is cold.
It's cold out there. Oh my
It
God.
is.
But we're going to warm it up with some conversation, right?
I'm looking forward to it.
All right, so can we get up close and personal?
Yes, we can.
All right then. So let's start off out. Now we know that you are a corporate VP. So how did your corporate career start?
I started out at Prudential Financial as a temp
A temp?
over 20 years ago.
Wow.
And I worked my way up through the corporate ranks. And in 2009, I wrote a proposal as to why the company should focus on women and multicultural markets, and essentially created a job doing what I love and loving what I do since 2009. And it really propelled my career.
So that's how you do that. You write a proposal and you say, you should have this and I should be the person.
Right.
Oh, y'all hear that? You should have this and awesome.
It was all about timing and taking that risk,
Right,
you know, to speak up about something that I thought was important.
Right.
And it just so happened that the leadership thought that it was too.
Yeah.
And so I got the backing and got to do the work that I loved for years. And this year, I decided to retire after 20 years of service.
Okay.
Because I want to be able to give back in a bigger way. And since releasing my book, I realized that God gave me a gift that I need to give to the world.
So do you think that anybody can do that? Any intern can rise to executive VP? Because the company has to be pliable too to accept that type of thing. Like I'm going to give you a proposal so you can create me a position. That doesn't just happen to anybody.
It doesn't just happen to anybody, but not everybody has the courage to speak up,
Yes.
to take the risk.
Yes.
My advice to anyone coming into corporate America is to bring your authentic self, to speak up. When you see something is not the way it should be, don't just go with the norm and the status quo. You know, what worked for me was being a change agent, you know? So always trying new things, always volunteering for different things, but always staying true to my passion, which was around diversity, inclusion, equality, and economic empowerment for women and people of color. Just given my own family legacy, I found out at the age of 30 that my great-grandfather was a millionaire in the city of Newark.
Really?
He owned 2 separate clubs. He owned a music school that Sarah Vaughan went to. And he died when he was 40. And by the time my mother was born in 1953, there was little to no evidence of his legacy.
Wow. Wow. So like what happened there?
Yeah, so his wife inherited his fortune, but she wasn't a good businesswoman. She remarried, and her husband was an alcoholic. And so they really squandered the money. And what little bit that my grandfather had and his sister, my aunt, they weren't business-minded people either. So the family fortune was gone.
So is that what drew you to Prudential though?
It was not. I found out after I worked at Prudential. And so I thought to myself, it can't be a coincidence that I work for one of the largest financial services brands in the world, and I have this legacy, and, you know, so it must be meant for me to do something about it for other families like ours, and to change that narrative, particularly for Black families in America.
Now, we heard you say that you created this position and you had people that were willing and open-minded to it, but I'm sure that climb wasn't easy.
It wasn't.
So talk about a few of the obstacles that you faced.
So I think one of the biggest obstacles was having the confidence to know that if I was at the table, that I had a voice. And, you know, early in my career, I used to be quiet and shy. And one of the things I was really good at is project management. And I remember I had a VP who I was working for at the time I was very angry with him because we had this strict deadline. We were on this big project. And he came in shooting the breeze talking about the Al Jarreau concert he went to on the weekend. And he came to the meeting like 40 minutes late. And so I'm like, we got to get this project done.
Wow.
He's like, Dorinda, guess what? It'll get done. But he said, I want to give you a tip. He said, I can have a meeting with you at any day, and it only take 5 minutes, because all you want to know is, what do you need? How do you want me to get it done? And that's it. And he said, you have to bring your entire self, and you have to get to know people, and you have to be more personable. And so that allowed me to start opening up. And one of the reasons why I was hesitant to open up is because I had a GED education. I came from, a dysfunctional family. I was a former drug dealer.
We're going to get all into that.
Yeah, so I had all this baggage that I was holding on to, that made me think that I wasn't worthy. But what I realize now is that when God put me in that room, I was worthy.
Yes. Say that again.
When God put me in the room, I was worthy.
And we're all worthy.
Right.
So I like that you took command of yourself and just brought that to the table.
Yeah.
We're going to go there. So let's talk about, so you just said a few minutes ago when we first opened that you were an entrepreneur, soon to be entrepreneur. So tell us the difference. Tell our viewers the difference, just in case they don't know.
So an entrepreneur is someone who works for a corporation, who creates their own path and their own job. So that's really an entrepreneur, someone who blazes their own path, their own trail, and creates something unique for themselves. Of course, an entrepreneur is someone who works on their own and creates their own business, external.
So as the entrepreneur and the fact that you work for Prudential, do the two things, you being an entrepreneur and what you do for the community, does that bring Prudential in and also make it like a win-win situation for you and Prudential?
Oh, absolutely. I love the company and what the company stands for. And, they have a mission to ensure that each and every family has access to financial services, right? So it's really important, the work that I do, because I don't want to represent something that I don't believe in, right? And they don't want to be represented in something that they can't get behind. So I think with my passion to help families gain financial security and how it ties with Prudential's mission, it just gels well.
So can anybody be both an entre and intra at the same time?
Not everybody. Not everybody has the fortitude to do it. Not everybody has the desire to do it.
And does it have to depend on the company too? Because maybe the company won't allow you to mix the two.
Right. It definitely depends on the corporate culture and your brand and your passion, really.
Okay. All right. And you were there, you said 20 years and about to retire?
Yes.
Oh, Lord, I can't wait for the day. Well, you think they'll try and make you stay?
You know what? I think the leadership of the company is so proud of what I've accomplished and what I'm doing. I'll always have love for Prudential.
Will you miss it?
I don't know.
Till it happens. I don't know if I'll miss it.
I don't know if I'll miss it. I'll miss the people for sure.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you how you balance that, because if you're going to really step out and be the entrepreneur or the full-fledged entrepreneur, it's going to be hard to be doing, because I was going to ask you, how are you able to take off and go and do what you do when you got a full-time 9 to 5?
I've been fortunate, that I've been able to use my vacation time. A lot of the speaking I try to book on weekends. And then Prudential's been very, supportive of me when people say, oh, we know you're here representing Prudential, but can you talk a little bit about your story in your book and empower these women or these children or whatever it be? And they've been, very accommodating.
So let's talk about this book, Protected by Purpose. Where did this title come from?
You know what? It was my team at Prudential. We were at an event and we started brainstorming because they all knew my story. And it was actually a woman named Nadia Pringle who said, you know what? I think Protected by Purpose would be awesome.
So the title came before you actually wrote the book, or?
It came before I wrote the book.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So what does Protected by Purpose mean? Let's hear your story.
So my story, I was born to 2 heroin addicts. My parents were beautiful people who suffered from the disease of addiction. They were high school sweethearts. And as a result of their addiction, I suffered the consequences. So my dad ended up going to prison when I was very young. My mom ended up in an abusive relationship with a man that she met in rehab. And he ended up abusing both of us mentally and physically. And I went from a straight A honor roll student to an at-risk youth. At the height of my abuse, I was a very angry young woman.
I can imagine.
I was fighting all the time. I actually thought I was capable of killing someone. My father was released from prison, and I was free from the abuse. And then less than a year later, he was diagnosed with AIDS. And that was back in the 80s. And, you know, we didn't really know a lot about the disease other than everybody was dying.
Yeah.
And so I ended up dropping out of high school. I robbed a drug distributor and became a drug distributor myself.
So stop. You robbed a drug distributor, and you're still standing here.
Yes.
That is so good.
You read about that in a book, too.
Wow.
My cousin happened to be one of the biggest gangsters on the East Coast. So I took a gamble and I took a risk that I would have his protection, which I did. But that's how I got into the drug game, and I ended up supplying my parents with their drugs. And I became part of the vicious cycle that I despised, because I despised what drugs had done to my family. And then when my dad, April 9th, 1988, he told me that he was not going to make it through the week. And I became very angry and enraged, and the last thing I said to him was, I hate him. April 11th, 1988, he passed away. I became severely depressed. My mom disappeared, and it was unlike my mom not
to disappear.
Yeah, to speak to me. So I assumed that she was dead, and I attempted suicide. Woke up in a psych ward, spent 6 weeks in a psych ward, was released into my paternal grandparents' care because I was still a minor. And God sent my great-grandmother as an angel. And she said to me, you are not responsible for your father's burdens here on this earth.
Right.
God has a different plan and purpose for your life. And that started me on a different trajectory and path.
So that was the turning point.
That was the start of it. You know, I still had a foot in the street, still was hanging out with the wrong people, but I knew that that's not what God wanted me to do, that there was something bigger and greater in store for me. I just didn't know what it was.
Wow. So when you got this vision, awesome. When you got this vision, was that the actual thing that made you say, okay, because I think I read something in the summary of your book that said, I'm about to be 18. So did your grandmother speak to you?
So I subsequently got a job at a hospital, but I still...
You got a job at a hospital?
I did.
Selling drugs?
My grandmother, we forged my birth certificate.
Oh, Lord.
Because I wasn't 18.
Okay.
And I got a job in the hospital.
Okay.
But I went from making $3,000 to $5,000 a day to making $300 a week.
Yeah, so you were like, what is this?
So I was still having, flipping money in the hood. And I was going on my way to Club Sensations with friends from the projects. And I remember I was fur coat, Gucci down, salt and pepper haircut. And these detectives rolled up on us and threw me against the wall and started frisking us. And I heard the voice of God say to me, you're going to be 18 in 2 weeks. You're either going to die or go to jail. What's it going to be? And that was God's ultimatum, because he kept giving me the signs and telling me that he had something bigger in store for me. And so I went to the club that night, and the next day I called my aunt who lived in the suburbs of Lake Apacon, and I said, Auntie, will you come and get me? She did, and then I never looked back.
Awesome. I mean, you are total proof that no matter what you go through, no matter the darkness, you can come through. But you had deep inside of you some sort of self-assurance, even though you probably didn't think so. Besides, God speaking, you had something else innate that allowed you. And some people don't have that. Some people don't have that self-esteem thing inside. I mean, some people don't have it at all, but some people have it in them and they don't know it's in there, but they need something to tap it to bring it out. And I'm so thankful.
Yeah, I didn't know I had it.
Yeah, so I'm so thankful that somebody tapped it to allow you to go on. Like one of Martin Luther King's quote was, keep moving forward no matter what, right?
Right.
And you kept doing that because you called your aunt and said, come and get me. So what do you think are the important steps to go from a dark path like that to a light path?
I think first and foremost, you have to have faith.
And these aren't the three tips.
Okay. But first and foremost, I think you have to have faith. And I didn't grow up religious by any means or go to church every week, but I knew that God existed.
Right.
And I knew that there was a higher power.
Right.
So I had faith that God would protect me. The second thing is you have to know that you are worthy. That if you're put on this earth, that you are worthy and you were put here for a purpose. And sometimes we're in such dysfunctional and you know, dysfunctional situations where we can't see the light. But know that that is a moment in time, and you have to put in the work with fortitude to change your circumstances. And I'm not going to say it's going to be easy, because sometimes it's not. It's hard, especially if your family is causing your dysfunction.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
How do you separate yourself from family in order to go on and live the life that God has destined for you?
And how do you surround yourself with positive people when you're so faced with negative around you?
Right.
That is really a hard thing, because you don't want to separate yourself from your family, you know, or you don't want them to think, you know, you have people that say, oh, you think you're too good. Did you ever experience that where people would say things like that?
I did. I experienced, you know, I experienced times when people said, oh, you think you're too good, or you think you're better. And that's not the case. But, you know, not everybody is meant to go on your journey.
Right.
I learned that.
Or understand your journey.
Or understand it. And sometimes you have to love people from a distance.
Absolutely.
If they're not good for your soul and your spirit, and don't give you the peace that you need in your life, it's okay to love them from a distance. That doesn't mean you don't have to love them, but love them from a distance.
I heard that. So now, how do you balance this? Corporate VP, entrepreneur, author, speaking engagements, mother, wife? How do you balance all of that?
I have a wonderful husband. We just celebrated 25 years of marriage.
Congratulations.
29 years in a relationship.
Nice.
But he's been my backbone, and then also extended family. I lost both my grandmothers last year within a month of each other.
Wow.
But they were, you know, very instrumental in my life. And, you know, my mom when she was alive. So I had people, aunts, uncles, who would pitch in, who cheered me on. That was the biggest thing. Because I talk about the dysfunction from the addiction, but there was so much love.
Oh, good.
So
and you
much
stayed
love.
with them throughout. You weren't raised by anybody else.
Right, exactly.
So do you have children, right?
I do.
How many children?
I have 3 children, 27, 21, and 19.
All right. Looking like 25. Well, that's good. So are they like a part of the team? Do they do things?
Yes, actually, I'm hoping to bring my daughter on
Nice.
to work with me as I develop my new venture. My 2 sons, they haven't even read the book, don't want to read the book.
That might be too hurtful for them.
Based on my daughter's reaction. My daughter read the book, and she was reading at lunchtime at her job. And she called crying and boo-hooing. And I didn't know you went through that. And my sons were like, we don't want to know.
Read it. So what's a day in the life of Dorinda Walker?
Day in the life of Dorinda Walker. It's planning, it's collaborating. I love to collaborate with other women and just other people who are successful. So I'm working on a whole bunch of things right now. It's, you know, winding down my corporate career and making sure that the people who are coming behind me are ready to carry the trail and blaze the path. And so that's a day in my life. And it's just filled with people, new opportunities, planning, and being very strategic right now.
So how large is your team, your entrepreneur team?
My entrepreneur team, I have probably about 6 go-to people right now who are helping me build my business. And I have a plethora of strong entrepreneurial women friends who have said, come on, let's have a strategy session. Let me introduce you to this person. Let me introduce you to that person. And they were the ones who actually said, Dorinda, you know, you are a beast at what you do, and you can do that for yourself and do more of what you want to do, what fuels your passion. And so they gave me the encouragement that I needed.
So how long did it take to write the book?
5 weeks.
Get out.
It's my story, so...
And that's what makes it easy, right?
I had it all in my head. So it took 3 months to get the book proposal done.
Right.
And so once we got the book proposal done, my agent sent it out to 50 publishers. 20 came back with interest. And I signed with Timothy and Titus, who's been phenomenal. And I got a great distribution deal, you know, Amazon, Walmart, ebooks.
And it's been out since when?
April 16th.
Of 18?
Of 2017.
I'm
2018, I'm sorry.
Okay. And it's doing really well?
It's doing really well.
Okay, good.
Super excited. I've been touring the country. And that's been amazing because it really opened my eyes to how many people were holding on to baggage. And shame. And when I shared my story, it enabled them to share their story. And a lot for the first time. I remember the first time I shared the story, and it was before the book came out. Our pastor, Dr. DeForest Soares Jr., he called me. He said, Dorinda, I want you to speak at my women's luncheon. And I'm like, I'm not a pastor. I'm not going to bless these women.
Yes, you will.
And he's like, Walker, just come on, tell your story.
I know.
So it was so fun. And I sent him a PowerPoint, and he was like, scrap the PowerPoint, just tell
talk.
Just talk.
And it's so important. I always say that if you hold things in and don't let people know, you think that it only happened to you.
Right.
You can't heal if you don't let it out. And then you find out that it helps other people. You know?
Exactly. There were about 200 women at that event.
Yeah.
Literally 50 women stood in line and waited up to an hour to speak to me. And the first woman said, nobody knows this, but I've been contemplating suicide for the last couple of days.
Yeah. And see, people think you shouldn't talk about that too. So I'm a big proponent for that, because if you don't let anybody know, then they don't know what you're going through, and then they can't help you.
Exactly.
And the thing that I talked about in one of my sessions were there are always signs. People overlook them because they don't know what they are. I have a tendency, because I suffer from that. So I have a tendency to tell you what the signs are, so when I can't reach me, you can.
Yeah.
And if you can't, then I just go to sleep, unassisted. So let's move on, because I don't want to lose time. So let me go into one more thing before I do turn this hot seat on and get some little cute questions in there. So how does Dorinda relax? What do you do? What do you like to do?
I like to travel. So the best way for me to relax is on the beach.
I hear that. I hear that.
I
Feet up.
love the Caribbean.
Yes, me too, yes.
So that's my go-to when I just need a break. It's somewhere warm.
And when people remember having met Dorinda, what is the most important thing you want them to remember about you?
That I treated them with respect, that I was integral, and that I made them feel good,
Yeah.
that our interaction was memorable.
Yeah. I was at one of the events, I think, that you spoke at, and I think that's when I decided that I wanted to talk to you. It's been a while since, I think it was like last year sometime. And then, like I said, in preparing for this, like all in my head, in my sleep, and I'm like, yes, I know that. Yes, I'm like, I feel like, you're like a best friend in my head, and definitely look up to your accomplishments and how you open up and how you use yourself to help other women in the community. I think that's just awesome. So what's your advice for an aspiring author, entrepreneur? What are 3 things that you would tell them that they need to do first if they want to be an author?
If you want to be an author, just start writing. Start writing. Make sure that you do some research to find out if you want to be self-published or if you want to have a publisher. And that was critical for me because at the time I realized that I didn't have the time to self-publish because I would have to do everything myself.
Right.
So getting a publisher was very important. So then I knew that I had to align myself to an agent, and I had to be marketable to a publisher. So really focusing on getting my social media profile up, building my brand, so that the publisher would say, okay, we can stand behind her. That was very important.
Is that 1 or is that 2? Or is that a combination of both?
I think it's a combination of both.
Okay, so give me 2.
2 is be very authentic in your storytelling, right? And make sure you get a good editor. That's going to be key. And the 3rd thing is just do it. Do it. I'm a firm believer if God puts the vision in your head, then it's up to you to put in the work with fortitude to make it happen. Because what I've learned, and God has never let me down, when I work to make that vision come true, it becomes so much bigger than I ever imagined.
Yeah. Because he gives you over and above what you expect or can. He will just exceed your expectations, period.
And so many times, people come to me and say, I want to do this and I want to do that. And in the next breath, they tell me why they're not doing it. Like they're talking themselves out of it.
Okay.
And I'm like, you're letting your good life let you be
talking yourself out of your good life.
You're becoming so complacent that you're not leading up to the great life that God has destined for you.
Right.
So put in the work. If the vision is there, put in the work.
Put in the work. Okay. All right. So now let me turn on the seat over here. And I'm going to ask you 3 quick questions, playful questions, and just answer them off the top of your head. No thinking, okay?
Okay.
Anyway. All right. So the first one is, what's your go-to love song that puts you in the mood?
Fire and Desire. Fire and Desire.
Fire and Desire. Okay. If you could be banished to an island anywhere, where would it be?
Tahiti.
Yes. I want to pick up the train tickets, or rather the plane tickets, at the airport and say, girls, come and join me. I'm over here already.
Yes.
Imagine you would say that. Yes. I interrupted the flow here. All right. And the last one is, a perfect date with your husband would involve what?
Dinner, beach, pool, and flowers, champagne.
She got a long list. You listening? What's his name? Tell him.
Whirlpool. Yeah. Flowers, roses.
That's a long date.
Yeah.
That's wonderful because we got to keep the fires burning
Yes.
all the time. All right. Tell me a little bit. Your children, you said what do they do?
So my daughter is a manager at Home Depot.
Mm-hmm.
She has a daughter, so I have a granddaughter.
You got a granddaughter?
Yes, Shugs.
Oh.
Her name is Neveb. I call her Shugs.
You call her Shugs?
Yes, she's my Shugs.
Okay.
My oldest son works at the airport, and my youngest son took a sabbatical from school, and he's working now. He's going back to school. Yeah, that's a whole nother story.
I hear you,
and
I hear you.
I write about my kids and what I learned about being a parent, and not trying to plan every aspect of their life. But all three are thriving and doing very, very well.
Awesome.
And I'm super excited. My daughter's out and about and on her own. And
Is there another book in the works?
I'm definitely going to write another book. It's going to be associated to the next venture that I launch.
Okay. You'll have to come back and talk
I'll
about
definitely
that.
have to come back.
Awesome. So tell our viewers how they can stay connected to you.
So you can connect with me at DorindaWalker.com. I'm Dorinda Walker on all social media, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and Dorinda J. Walker on Facebook.
Okay. All right. Dorinda, it's been so wonderful to chat with you.
This was so fast.
I
but
know.
It was so much fun.
It's so much fun. I'm glad
We
you
have to
come
do it
back,
again.
right?
Yes.
All right. This has been the R&B Bistro Up Close and Personal with Venus. I'm on all social media, so you can find me there. Remember, it's never too late to live your dreams. And when you do, I'll be there encouraging you. Make sure you tell someone about the Bistro. Come on back and see us again next time and see who we talk to. Gotta go. Love you for watching.
Music is the answer. Sweet music is the way. Gospel, jazz, R&B touches you every day. Talk about how it moves